think, a very important conversation, we all agree, and also can be a conversation that goes in very, very many directions. So I simply want to kind of set the stage for what the focus will be for the conversation, and I'm going to hand it over to our panelists. First of all, we're talking about mikvah as a women's space and how to meet women's needs at the mikvah. There are so many conversations to have about mikvah. This is the one we're focusing on for this particular session. And also, this is not a session that's especially about the creative mikvah usage, we're not going to focus in depth on new or creative rituals around mikvah, although we may touch on it, but that may not be the focus of our conversation. And also, this is a non-halachic conversation. So the assumption is that a mikvah user will have a halachic conversation with her own rabbinic resource. But today we're not talking about halakha, we're talking about all of the issues surrounding the halachic ones. I'm sure there are many different perspectives in the room, and our panelists are going to try and address from a perspective of someone who might be a mikvah attendant, or a board member, or a committee member running a mikvah, perhaps a college teacher, perhaps a mikvah user, perhaps a mikvah curious, non-mikvah user. And I'll just say I'm so honored to be the moderator for these two amazing panelists, and I've sort of had different roles within mikvah as well. I ran a mikvah when I was living in Chicago for 6 years, and now I'm in Montreal and not in a position to run the mikvah. So it's interesting what happens when you are not given the power or the authority to make decisions about the mikvah itself. How do you take that empowerment for yourself, whether as a mikvah user, as a mikvah educator? How can we all feel more empowered in the conversation, regardless of where we lie in sort of the scene of mikvah? So the way our panel is going to work is each of our panelists is going to speak first for a few minutes about who they are, what their mission is, what they've done, kind of the highlights, and then we'll move into sort of phase 2, which will be their charge to all of you about what you can do, and we'll open it up for questions toward the end. So we're going to start with Dr. Naomi Marmon-Grummett of the Eden Center, and she'll introduce herself and tell you all about the amazing work that she's doing. Authority to make decisions about the
I very much appreciate that you came here, and I am so torn myself on where to be. I direct the Eden Center. I'm going to describe in the process of talking what it is and how we got there, but there's information on the table for anybody who wants to take. I started my quest search about mikvah when I was very young under Sylvia Fishman, who's speaking here today also. And I came from a very personal place of saying, what is mikvah for women today? Do people actually go to the mikvah? How do they actually keep these halachot? How common is this? Because I really grew up in a house where we didn't talk about it so much, and I honestly wanted to know what was the existence of mikvah in reality. And I began as an inquisitive college senior, exploring from a sociological perspective what is mikvah. And that continued, and I have interviewed hundreds of women over my years. My doctorate focused on men and women's experience around Taharat HaMishpacha and what it means to them. And in the course of all of those years of interviewing, I heard various genres of stories from different women. There was one who said, one genre was people who said, oh, I learned such beautiful things about mikvah. Mikvah as such a wonderful concept. And when I was a Kala, I was so looking forward to it. And then I got to the mikvah. And I had to do this and this and this and this, and they were checking and I had to check myself if I did all these things. And what happened to that spiritual side? That was kind of one story that I heard. Another group of stories that I heard were about women and themselves, where they are in their relationship with their body. How do you feel about yourself, especially when you get to the mikvah? Do I feel heavy? Do I feel not heavy? Do I want to have a baby? Did I just have a miscarriage? How do I feel about re-entering my intimate relationship. How do I feel about my intimate relationship? Me as a person. And there were so many topics that came out that women were thinking about themselves and their relationship when they were in the mikvah. And really, one of the women that really stays in my mind was a woman who said to me, don't ask me about Sarah Mishpacha right now, it's really hard for me to talk about it. I just had 2 miscarriages, and I really don't know what's going to be. And they promised me that if I kept this, I would have a beautiful Jewish family. I don't know. And truthfully, as you sitting here, I interviewed women who had had breast cancer. And coming to the mikvah was really hard because where is my body in this whole scheme of Jewish women? I'm not quite the same as I was, and how do I feel about that, and what's the mikvah lady going to say or make me feel? All of those were really real questions about women and themselves and where they want to be. And then there was a whole other theme that came forward, which was about the woman in her relationship with her husband. And how did she feel going into a renewed cycle of relationship? Because most of the women that I was talking to who were keeping Taharat HaMishpacha were in married relationships. And where are you? Are you at the end of a fight, at the beginning of a fight? Does going to the mikvah make you have a fight? These were all things that I heard. And you know, a few of them, again, really stand out. Like the woman who said to me, look, sometimes it's really hard for me to go to the mikvah because it allows us to be together. And truthfully, if I'm afraid that I'm going to be abused when I come home, I'm not really that motivated. I've been in an abusive marriage for 17 years. And sometimes my only defense is not to go to the mikvah. That's the only time and the only way that I can really protect myself. And there were women who, you know, spoke about the positive loving. I heard one woman, I loved it. It was actually the husband who told me they had 6 kids, they'd been married for a number of years. He said, every single month I do something to surprise my wife. Because I wish that every single day I could tell her how special she is. I remember every time I think so, I'm like, oh my God, I have a crazy husband. He said one time, I filled up the entire house with balloons. One time I cooked Malaysian and I set this whole stage. One time, you know, I just rented a movie but put out candles. And every single time he came up with something different to show his wife, I love you, I appreciate you, I want to be with you. I'm really excited that we have this getting together time. At the end of hearing all of those stories, I kind of said, wow, on lots of different levels of who they are. And somehow, it seems to me that mikvah is not living up to its potential in what it could be for us. And we need to do some work so that really mikvah can allow for us to have a positive spiritual encounter with God. So that mikvah can be a sensitive place to the needs of every single woman at whatever stage she is in life, and whatever place she is in her own relationship and dealing with herself and the things that come about in life, so that it can be a place that actually catches suffering, and so that if a woman is going through something difficult, somebody at the mikvah, and there's no better place to see a woman crying or marks of abuse than in the mikvah, so that somebody there can say, you don't have to be alone, I'm here for you. And so that the mikvah could be a place where we actually had resources in our community, so that I knew that I could go and be able to get some help or discussion about my body within the context of the Jewish world, about sexuality in a positive way within the context of the Jewish world, and not something that I had to hide behind. And therefore, I helped to create Eden, the Eden Center. And we try to respond, first of all, we try to create this model where mikvah will be seen as more than just a place that you go and dip, but really as a women's center that integrates intimacy education, women's health and well-being, and halacha, and that one day we'll be able to create a mikvah center in Yerushalayim as a model on lots of different levels of who they are. And somehow, it seems to me that mikvah is not living up to its potential in what it could be for us. And we need to do some work so that really mikvah can allow for us to have a positive spiritual encounter with God, so that mikvah can be a sensitive place to the needs of every single woman at whatever stage she is in life, and whatever place she is in her own relationship and dealing with herself and the things that come about in life, so that it can be a place that actually catches suffering, and so that if a woman is going through something difficult, somebody at the mikvah, and there's no better place to see a woman crying or marks of abuse than in the mikvah, so that somebody there can say, you don't have to be alone, I'm here for you. And so that the mikvah could be a place where we actually had resources in our community, so that I knew that I could go and be able to get some help or discussion about my body within the context of the Jewish world, about sexuality in a positive way within the context of the Jewish world, and not something that I had to hide behind. And therefore, I helped to create Eden, the Eden Center, and we try to respond. First of all, we try to create this model where mikvah will be seen as more than just a place that you go and dip, but really as a women's center that integrates intimacy education, women's health and well-being, and halacha, and allows for it to be a wellspring, really in a different sense. At Eden right now, we hope that one day we'll be able to create a mikvah center in Yerushalayim, as is happening here. But right now, we do a lot of education. We do community education on lots of different levels. For example, we have a class for women called Tahara in Living Color, which was originally supposed to be called the 50 Shades of Red, in which women from the community come, and with a Yoet and Halacha on our team, they learn what are the shades of red that are considered fine, what are the colors on marot that are not a problem, that's a clean hefsek and you don't have to worry about it. And really for people to be able to know for themselves what's okay and what's not. We also have a ton of blogs, and I really invite you to look at our website, www.theedencenter.com, to see a variety of different issues that we cover in the intersection of women's health, well-being, and mikvah. We do training of chatan teachers and kala teachers so that they know not just to talk about halacha, but about the real substantive issues that a couple is going to face in the course of life, intimacy, and their encounter with the mikvah, that we need partnership, that mikvah night is not just about women's obligation, but it's about both sides being ready to engage, and both partners being active players in our observance of Taharat HaMishpacha. We obviously also talk about birth control, and that's not a one-sided issue either, and we obviously talk about intimacy at greater length. And then our most important project is to train mikvah ladies, to be able to be a different kind of resource. And we have created a 12-week course, and thank you to Esther Krause, who's sitting here, who helped to create it with us, in which we really deal with a lot of the different topics. We talk to mikvah ladies about abuse, about postpartum depression, about OCD, about fear of water, about sexual abuse, about breast health, about a variety of different issues, and obviously